Welcome to the Orthodontic Pearls podcast, where we share tips and tricks to better your clinic, business, and life. Today we have our honored guest, the ortho rockstar of RELAPSE, Dr. Jacquee Schieck, as we discuss finding balance as a high achiever, managing a growing practice with 4 kids, and the benefits of going all digital. And now your hosts of the podcast, Drs. Chris Teeters, Brian Anderson, and Andy Sarpadar.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today's guest is someone who's built an incredible orthodontic brand, embraced innovation, and helped shape a new generation of orthodontists. Not to mention, she's also a bassist in an all-orthodontist rock band, RELAPSE. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Jacquee Schieck. How are you doing today, Jacquee?
Hey, hi guys. I'm great. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited for this conversation. It's going to be awesome.
This has been a long time coming. I know we've wanted to have you on the show for a minute. We really appreciate you making time in your busy schedule. I mean, everyone's busy here. How are you guys doing today, Chris?
Feeling great. Excited to talk with Jacquee. I know we've been on the stage together, but it's nice to dive a little deeper and talk more about what really drives her in life and in work.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's going to be a fun one. And Tom Selleck over here, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I just got back from Europe with my daughter less than a week ago, and that was a really wonderful opportunity just to spend one-on-one time with her. She's 16, and that was great. But I'm still a little bit jet lagged, but I'm hanging in there. And you know what? Like Chris said, these substantive conversations are always very enlivening, and I'm always up for a good conversation like this. So I'm excited. And Jacquee, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
awesome. Well, I'm glad we all got together here. All right. Today, we're going to just jump right in with getting to know Jacquee. So, Jacquee, I'd love to hear the story of your journey from dental school to starting Schieck Orthodontics. And you're in Minnesota. Which city in Minnesota are you?
Northfield.
Northfield.
So we're just south of Minneapolis. Yeah, about 40 minutes south of Minneapolis.
Very cool.
So,
Very cool.
yeah. So I was born and raised in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Midwestern girl. My parents are still there. I lived there all the way through high school, obviously, and, kind of toured my way down south. So I ended up at Iowa State and then went down to Kansas City for my dental training. Right after that, I went into residency and I got accepted into Minnesota. Yay, Gophers, right? Brian and Chris know this?
That's right.
You guys are both from Minnesota, right? Brian and Chris, you did residency there too, right?
Yeah.
75% of this podcast is Minnesota.
Yeah,
it feels like
trained.
that. Yeah. Did you guys have any overlap?
I was just going to say, it was really funny because I graduated like the year before they interviewed. So I missed them on the interview and their residency time. And then I came back as faculty the year after they graduated. So they were really like the one class that I missed in that time frame.
So you're the second one of their faculty that we've had on the show. Matthew Larson, I think, was the first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's good. We're getting all their mentors. We're seeing, I mean, do you take credit for these guys? Like, do you want to take credit for everything?
I mean, I'll take
know?
credit. Yeah, I'll take credit, but no, we didn't cross paths there. They had my legacy, but that was it. But yeah, and then after that, I had 2 great years at Minnesota. Really learned a lot and went back to South Dakota to practice after that for about 3.5 years as an associate. I had a couple offers out of residency and was deciding which one to go with. And ultimately, this one felt like it had the best long-term potential for me. I felt like I had mentors that were built in. When I went back, what ended up happening, I mean, it was a great 3.5 years. I learned a ton, but ultimately it was a values misalignment. I felt like between me and the partners where my style of practice, I guess, or the desires that I had for practice were a little bit of a mismatch. They wanted me to work 4.5 days a week. I wanted to work 3 clinical days, and I was able to produce as much as them on 3 clinical days when I was practicing as an associate. And so I knew I could do that. But ultimately, the way contracts were structured and things were discussed, it just was not going to be something that was going to work for me long term. And so ultimately, the decision was made to move out of the non-compete, move out of my hometown and start a practice in Northfield. And so Schieck Orthodontics was born in April of 2014.
Well, what's something about Minnesota life in your local community that shaped the way that you practice?
Yeah, it's been actually a really fabulous place to practice, a really good mutual fit. So I think Midwesterners, if you guys haven't visited, please come. But it's a lot of, just very kind, generous people, a good work ethic. They take accountability for things. Not a lot of transient population, right? So I just have really built long-term relationships with the families in town and with my patients. they're great patients. They, not everybody, of course, does their part, but for the most part, they do their part. The parents care about the outcomes, and are going to help the kids with their treatments, and the adults themselves are doing great jobs with their treatment. So it's been a fantastic place to live and work, really support local business, community focused, which was a big part of what I wanted to be as an orthodontist. And so.
Sure. Yeah, we know obviously we know a lot of Minnesotans. We've had a few of them on the podcast so far. And, aside from it being the polar opposite, and I do mean polar from Phoenix, you guys, I think for as hot as we are, you guys are in the opposite direction, like freezing cold.
Yeah. You hibernate in the summer, we hibernate in the winter.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I always say you can't shovel, or you don't need to shovel sunshine. So I'd prefer, my sun belt. But, you guys have all been to Minnesota. We went there for the MOPC a few years ago, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
That was my first time experiencing that.
21.
That was the first one after COVID.
21.
Yeah.
And now I remember. Now, Jackie, were you with the band at that point? I don't think you were. You were.
No, I was rocking out in the crowd. I was in the crowd for that show, singing every song. It was actually at that event that Chris and I connected about music. I don't know if you remember that, Chris, but we had a great conversation about music. And
yeah, sure did.
A few weeks later, you emailed me. And you said, "Hey, if I remember right from our conversation, you play the bass."
Among many other instruments, I come to find out too, which is great.
I said, "Well, actually, I don't play the bass, but I will if it means I get to be part of Relapse." And so I said, "Give me a couple months," and I started taking lessons from a patient's dad who gave bass lessons, and and the rest is history from there.
Is that for real? So this is 2021, and Chris finds out you're a musician, mistakenly assumes that you're a bass player, which is conveniently what they need for the band. And then you learned bass to be a part of the band.
Yes. I had already played. I played some acoustic. I played violin, piano. I had some other musical history. But it was like 4 strings. Can't be that hard. I can do this. I know a fretboard.
And at the time you sung for the church as well, correct?
Oh, yes. And so then I said, well, actually, I can learn bass, but vocals is really my passion and what I've done most in my history. So then they pulled me in on some of the 80s metal that they had in the set list for Miami.
That's so good.
Mm-hmm. That's your signature. I think that's been at every show, right?
Just about. Yep. We try to mix it up, but we bring back some of the favorites. So Zombies.
How about you give us a little sampling of that right now? I'm just kidding.
I gotta get you over here. Let's go.
Brian, looks like you had something on your mind.
Well, I was just going to say, well, first of all, you nail that falsetto. I mean, that falsetto in Zombie is so good. You do that so well. But I was just going to make a comment on, a couple of thoughts. First of all, the idea of synchronicity. So Carl Jung had this idea of synchronicity where it's not fate per se, because sometimes we hear fate, and I think as people who are based in science, we have science degrees, technical degrees, we can kind of poo-poo that and sort of just dismiss that, easily because of the attachments to that word, fate, right? But I think, so Carl Jung said it's a non-causal relationship of things that just somehow seems aligned. And I was just going to say, isn't it interesting how Chris, touched base with Jackie at MOPC 2021. And then a few weeks later, that came to fruition. Something came of that. I just think it's so interesting in our lives how, if we're paying attention, we can notice these synchronicities. And again, people can interpret that however they want, what that means, et cetera, et cetera. But I think just to say, something's happening that is standing out to me. Something's happening that is salient. Something's happening that is vibing with my frequency, the frequency of my life. And you can make meaning out of that. Not to say that it's an independent meaning. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But nobody really knows in the end, right? And people who assert that they know don't know. They just have a lot of confidence in it. But I just think that's interesting in our lives. And if we pay attention to these things that, it gives me pause for gratitude that, these little events happen in our lives that who knows what's going to come of that. And of course, in this case, speaking of the band, what was uncertain when there was a change in the band and our future going forward was uncertain. You like to think of that as kind of it's a death of some sort, right? Is this going to continue? How are we going to make this work? And that flips around into this resurrection cycle where, this synchronous event between Chris and Jackie came to fruition. And of course, I've enjoyed being in the band from the very beginning. It's been such an awesome opportunity to make friendships with people in the band, their families, of course, with colleagues, people who come to support us and things like that. But I just think that's such an interesting thing. Jacquee, Chris, what do you guys think of that fortuitous meeting?
I was going to say, I just think if you don't put yourself out there, I mean, it's sad to hear that like the numbers were so low at meetings this year for the AAO and all these other meetings. And everyone now, it seems this new generation wants to stay at home and get CE online. But things like Relapse would never happen if Jacquee didn't say, I'm going to go to a meeting and connect with my colleagues. We wouldn't have known about Doug and Ak if we didn't go to Orthopreneur Summit and see him, on Kyle Fagala's Double Dare doing a dance off. And I'm like, hey, look, these guys are great. We got to form a band. So these amazing things happen. And we're not just talking about a band because this is a weird anomaly that's amazing. But what about your practice? You go to these meetings and you talk with somebody one-on-one about what's going on in your practice in your life in a social CE setting. You're not going to get that at a streamed CE event. You're just not. So I really want to say, go to the AEO, go to MOPC, go to Orthopreneur Summit, go to as many meetings as you can, because these amazing things do not happen unless we put ourselves out there and meet in person.
And I was going to say, Brian, what you kind of triggered for me is more, I feel like I've lived my life that way of following the open doors. It's like if you can be in touch with your alignment, right? And you can watch for things like that. And then you seize the opportunities when they present themselves. I don't know, for me, it builds a sense of trust that I'm on the right path. If those synchronicities happen and they open up more opportunities and I can keep walking down this path fairly easily, not that I'm not afraid of hard things. I can get through obstacles, of course, but the more of those synchronicities along my path, the more aligned I feel, the more I can trust that I'm on the right path.
Absolutely.
And that's a big part of how I've lived my life. So I love that you brought that up.
I just love how you dove all the way in, Jacquee. Like you didn't play the bass, you had instruments, but you're like, man, this is an open door for me. I'm going to take lessons. I'm going to practice, an insane number of hours a day. And then you were singing and playing the bass at the same time, like months later. And it takes years for people to do that, but you were so focused that you were able to learn it so quickly. And that says a lot. The door can be open, but you didn't just walk through it. You like ran through it. And I think that makes a big difference when people seize those opportunities.
Yeah.
Well, I think, on that note that, again, however you think that these things happen, whether there's a higher power or not a higher power, that's open for debate. And that will never be a debate that's settled in life, during life. But I think if you can find something that gives you confidence in your decisions, you're in the right place. If you have confidence and gratitude, your life's going to go okay. And it doesn't really matter what the external events that happen, because you're going to even see quote unquote bad things as opportunities. You're going to see them as a death. Okay, well, so now this died. What's the open door I can enter through here, right? Even if it's something that's difficult. So I think that's a life lesson that we can, view that in our practices too. I mean, whatever happens. There's this Stoic phrase, Amor Fati. It's Latin. It means love your fate. And it literally means embrace and quote unquote love. And again, that word has attachments, but I would say love is an acceptance of what is real, an acceptance of reality as it actually is. And your understanding of reality, the best you can understand it. And so to love your fate is to accept what's happening in your life and use that to make you better. And so drop, the resentment, drop the victimhood, drop all these things that are low vibration frequencies that are going to, well, not to say that there's not a place for those, but you can't get stuck in those. You can't get stuck in those. There is a place for those, but you get stuck in the death cycle if you stay in those frequencies. They have a place, but then you've got to rise up. And I think too often we don't want to let go of that. We hold on to that. Why? Because it feels good to be upset. You understand what I'm saying. But you have to say, well, okay, I have to even love that. I have to even accept that. And when you try and twist reality, contort reality, manipulate reality, that's when you're going to be unhappy. And that's a road that I think as orthodontists, we are inherently so manipulative in general. Like I'm learning about, myself and us in general, people that are drawn to our profession we deal in minutia. We are control freaks. We are, 0.1 millimeters. We're able to view that with our naked eye. Right. And, I think the more we can take the good with that, because that's a part of who we've become and how we've coped with the world, take the good with that, but then drop the bad and learn to say, Amor Fati. I could just embrace this. I accept this. I can be angry. I can be upset. I can be whatever. But how can I step into this open door? How can I resurrect from this? So I think those are great things.
You're bringing up, so I know we wanted to talk a little bit too about like coaching and consulting pearls, but one of the biggest lessons that I got out of my coaching was take the lesson and leave the pain. Take the lesson, leave the pain. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. It's just, what can I learn? And how do I bring that into my future? And how do I leave behind all of that pain that it caused? And that served me well too. That's another.
Yeah. And I think one important thing, don't skip the pain. Too often we skip something. And Carl Jung says, what you resist persists. So if you skip it, it will be in the background. It will be affecting just about everything. So you can't ever actually get to happiness because you still haven't resolved the pain. You haven't felt the pain. So let it happen, but then let it go.
Haven't signed up for MOPC yet? Listen to this testimonial from the Braces guy, Dr. Grant Collins, on why you won't want to miss our 7th annual conference this October.
Oh man, if you don't come to the Mother of Pearls, you're going to miss an opportunity to connect with so many great people, learn a ton of great stuff. It's a very intimate, amazing session that we get to have with each other. I hope everybody gets to come out next year. It's going to be amazing next year too. We've got the educational side with lots of great speakers, great information, but also a fun side that is like coming together with friends, hanging out, doing fun things together. Not only in the conferences, but outside too. We're talking to each other about everything all the time. You really connect with people. It does feel like community. As far as the party goes, it's fun to get together. Getting an opportunity to play with the band Relapse was super fun. I mean, they bring such great energy. We all come and have a great time. I feel like a lot of the offices that work in orthodontics work really hard. So we come to learn, but we also come to have fun and connect with each other too. Next year's gonna be great. I mean, they're gonna have this in NASA, gonna have this in Florida. Like, I'm looking forward to it. I wouldn't miss that one at all. It really is a very unique conference. It's quickly growing to one of my favorites.
Register today as seats are limited and we sell out every year. Learn more by visiting orthodonticpearls.org on your computer or smartphone today.
I think that's something that not a lot of people take the time to learn. We're all so trained to just keep going through life. I think in our profession is part of it, or we're the people that are drawn to our profession potentially, right? We're high achievers and we're people who don't like criticism and we want to do a good job. And I think that we try not to touch those deep, hard feelings very much at all. It's just onward and upward, right? Keep going, keep going, keep going, and run the hamster wheel until you die. And so I think taking the time to really, like, I've spent a lot of time on that, learning myself, learning how to access those emotions, because one of the things that one of my coaches said to me was, if you don't feel the bottom, you can't feel the top. And I used to pride myself on being steady. You know, it was a point of pride for me that I would show up to work every day the same, and I was very even keel and I can take things as they come. And that's still who I am. I'm a very resilient person. I'm very steady. But I've learned that if I don't allow myself to grieve, if I don't allow myself to have hard days, if I don't acknowledge those bad feelings, then the joys are never as high. And I'm not feeling the same, you know, you have to have the low to have the high. And so again, it's a growth journey of that over the last few years for me. And I don't think everybody does that. I think a lot of people, it's a lot more safe and comfortable to not feel than it is to access that pain.
Yeah. So Jackie, there's a great quote that reminds me of that says, we're not human beings learning to become spiritual beings. We're spiritual beings inherently learning to become human beings. I think that's what that is. And I've learned that there's wisdom in that. Like, okay, like I have to learn how to be a human, not to just push stuff aside, but again, but not to grab onto it either. Allow it and then let it just go. Like it's going to come and go as it pleases. Like you're not going to bring it in and you're also not going to repel it. And again, that's when you're just aligned with reality because you're not manipulating it. You're not, well, if this doesn't happen, then this, blah, blah, blah. I won't be happy unless X, Y, Z. You're attached to all these things that now you're putting chains, you're putting handcuffs on yourself. You're literally putting handcuffs on yourself because you're becoming attached to a reality that is not yet, it's not right now, and it's something that's formless. It's in your head, what you think reality should be in a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 minutes from now, right? Or what reality should be right now, but it's not right now. So that's where we become so unhappy because we become attached to this thing that is not real. So I think just understanding the nature of it, like letting things come and letting them go and not yanking them in and also not holding on to them, but just they come and go. We experience it. And that's been a revelation for me, is just, I got to learn how to be human. This is what human
it's all part of the human
is.
experience. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I'm curious to know how you did that, Jackie. As an Enneagram 3, like I am, I feel like I get love from achievement or a sense of worth by achieving, and that comes from when we're young, right? Like we get good grades, and then your parents praise you, and you don't. They're like, oh, well, try to do better, right? So I've always felt like unless I didn't achieve, then I wasn't worthy of love, And I think that goes really deep for us 3s, and I think most orthodontists are probably 3s and have this sense of we got to keep climbing this ladder or hamster wheel till you die, like you said. So how do you get out of the hamster wheel? Like still push for greatness, but also experience that other part of life that I think we miss out trying to go for that next shiny object.
Great question.
It's a great question. It's still a journey I'm on for sure. I think you're on it your whole life. That's my innate personality type, right? It's very deep, but it's been a decade now that I've been in almost constant coaching, therapy, something, trying to learn this. And I didn't start out on that path thinking this is what I wanted to focus on. I started out with a coach to do small business leadership earlier in my practice life. And she was an Enneagram trained coach. And so she brought the Enneagram to me in 2016, 2017. And through the Enneagram, I just had so many wake up moments of things that I had just been on autopilot about. And I think that's how you do it, is you start to build this self-awareness. And again, I thought I was a self-aware person. I went into coaching like, oh, I'm great. Look at all the things I've done. Look at how happy I am. Look at my great life.
That's a 3 right there.
Totally.
And it's so humbling, right?
And
it's so humbling.
She just started like pushing back on me about things and waking me up to these things that I just took as gospel, things that I just assumed were true, and true for others.
Are you comfortable giving us an example of that, Jackie?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's nothing. It doesn't have to be even anything too deep, but just things like I just assumed that being productive meant you were valuable. Being busy means you're productive, and productive means value, right? And again, like you said, Chris, people love me because of the things I do, and if I start to be vulnerable, people will see me as weak. And it was a lot of things that I just never acknowledged about myself. I thought, although that's normal, right? Everybody feels that way. Everybody wants to work hard and be productive and be valuable in the world. And, it actually was a deep learning for me of my worth is not through my actions. And I know people see kind of the journey, from the outside that I've probably exhibited to the world in the last couple of years. But really the journey has been a decade for me. And I think it was when it finally, another thing she said was, it's going to take you years. She said this to me in 2017. It's going to take you years for it to go from your head to your heart. You're going to hear this. You're going to hear it. You're going to learn it. But it's not going to happen right away. It's going to take years until it becomes true for you. And that was absolutely the case. And I would say in the last couple of years, probably 2-3 years even, when I finally am living out these learnings that I've had, that's where it's been really fun, right? That's where what people are seeing is this rise, and like I'm doing all of these great things and I'm out on stage all the time and I'm having this really fun life. It's because of all of this growth and foundational building that I was doing in the background to be able to let go of judgment, to be able to figure out my own alignment, what I'm living for, like what my values truly are, and how I can pursue those despite what I may have been told or what I've assumed to be true. So it's been a really cool journey for the last few years.
That's awesome. One thing that always resonated with me is how you talked about when you went to 3 days a week, you intentionally sought out relationships with friends that maybe you haven't talked to in a while. I think that's really hard for us to do, to pick up the phone, 10 years later and be like, hey, let's go out to eat and reconnect. And I'd love to hear a little bit about that if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, I love that you remembered that, because there was a season. I think life is in seasons for sure. I mean, there was a season of life where friendships could not be the priority. It was right around the time that I moved to Northfield. I felt like I still had this solid connection to my high school and my college friends, but I wasn't nurturing those relationships. We'd see each other every 4 years and it'd be like, oh, hey, let's catch up, because we were all busy and you're in those building years. But I realized soon after moving to Northfield that I missed that I needed that. And I wasn't finding it easily because I was underwater with kids in practice. And so it was an intentional decision for me to start making the time in my life for friendships again, and to start reconnecting with people from my past that I cared deeply about, that knew me, that knew Jacquee from, childhood or Jacquee from college. I feel like it's important to have those kind of friendships along with new ones, of course. But yeah, so it really was that. It was simply that, just more frequent texting, more intentional texting or calling, reaching out on their birthdays, inviting them to things, making effort and time for the people that mattered.
Yeah, love it.
It's interesting. I can relate to that seasonality of things for sure. Chris and I were kind of Scott Galloway fans. I think, Brian, maybe you've read a little bit of his stuff too, but he's this, I don't think he's a billionaire, but he's definitely a 100 millionaire. He's a professor at NYU, donates his salary back. He teaches marketing, but he donates his salary back so they have no control over him. He can basically say whatever he wants, and he does say whatever he wants. But really, really good guy, huge advocate for like positive male role models. One of my favorites. And he always talks about work-life balance and how work-life balance is definitely achievable in your 40s. Assuming that you have no work-life balance in your 20s and in your 30s. So that's something I think everyone here is smiling. I think that probably most of our listeners can relate to that too, is that, in that season of our lives, we're focused on building that pillar, that career pillar around which everything else is contingent. I mean, I also look at the state of privilege that we're in, to have the luxury of focusing on our relationships without having to give up any kind of economic benefits at this point, but that is very much a reflection of all that sacrifice and all that lack of balance early on in life. So when you talk about seasonality, I think that we're all around the same age. I think we're all in our 40s, right? Yeah. So, what would you consider this? Are we like starting to enter the autumn years of our life, or are we still kind of in the
midlife?
Sorry, did I just like out everyone there? I'm sorry.
It's like August, man. It's like August.
I'm going July. I haven't even hit the 4th of July yet.
July. Okay. Well, I think July makes sense because you're right. We're like right on the other side of the hill. It's like we're not in June anymore. The summer it's still here, but it's like it's kind of. We can see the writing on the wall. Like, it's interesting to think about like where we've come, but then also that this journey's not over. We've still got more to go. And what lessons are we going to be learning over the next seasons of our lives, and how are our priorities going to shift at that point? Anyway, a little bit of a sidetrack there. I said I wasn't going to do that, but it was just an interesting observation. Jacquee, with your consulting, is there, I love reading. Do you have any kind of books that you might recommend? Are you a reader?
I am a reader. Again, seasonality, not so much in this season. Now I'm doing other things, but I love reading, and I could sit in a library and just be surrounded by books, and that would be my happy place. I love books. I would say most of the reading that I did that would probably be most valuable to the listeners is around business and leadership. I just devoured things those first 5 years of practice. I was listening to every podcast I could, reading every book I could. So I think a lot of the people, and this was a decade ago, but I think they're still around, but I EOS, like Traction, that system for structuring your business.
The last 3 podcasts that came up.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. It's a wonderful one. EntreLeadership was another early book that I read. It's Dave Ramsey's Business Leadership. And it just helped with, because I think advice to new practice owners is really lean in on leadership. It's not something that we get taught.
Yeah.
And again, it ties into self-awareness and all the things, right? You learn so much as a person, but I really heavily leaned in on leadership. So Patrick Lencioni, Donald Miller, Michael Hyatt, I was just listening and reading all of the stuff that they could put out. Brene Brown, she's got Dare to Lead. I think that's a great one. And, I love a lot of her stuff, but Dare to Lead's a really good book as well.
Hey Pearlers, check out this testimonial from Dr. Jacob Koch, a first-time attendee, on his experience at the MOPC and why you won't want to miss this year's MOPC at the Kennedy Space Center.
You're going to miss interacting with some amazing orthodontists, amazing team members, and amazing great vendors. You're going to miss experiencing just conversations outside of the lectures are really enlightening. I just had a great time. I actually have gone to a lot of vendor meetings that were put on with the product, and it was too much like showcasing perfect, pretty cases. I'm not showing the real world. And so a meeting like this, it shows the real world. It's not a sales pitch, the company showing you all their best results and hiding all the garbage behind the scenes. It's just real. It's real. That's how I can describe it. It's like a real meeting where there's real people sharing real ideas and real experiences. I like genuine. I like when things are genuine and it's put on by very genuine people who genuinely want to make an amazing experience. So that's what makes it different. I've actually always wanted to come. This is the first time I've come, and I'm thinking, why the heck did I not come before? Because it's so many people that are like-minded like me. So it's been great to connect with them and connect and grow and learn and improve not just our practice, but our lives and everything we do. So I'm loving it.
Be sure to log on to orthodonticpearls.org today to register for one of our last remaining seats at the Mother of Pearls Conference this October 10th through 11th at the Kennedy Space Center. Register at orthodonticpearls.org today.
Jacquee, I want to talk about innovation and digital tech because, you're an early adopter of Lightforce and digital workflows in general. Can we just spend a few minutes talking about the impact that's had on your practice, not just clinically, but also for your team and your patients?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of similar, I guess, to my coaching journey. Digital has been part of my practice journey from 2014 onward when we opened, well, even before that, as an associate. But when we opened Schieck Ortho, I was doing digital impressioning, knowing that was the future. And so I'd kind of slowly incorporated digital tech along the way. But the thing that I was missing was always fixed appliances. It was like, okay, I had a great aligner workflow. I had banded appliances, CBCT, like everything was flowing. And then I'd hit the mud of traditional fixed, right? Where I had to sit down, direct bond it, or use an indirect bonding system that wasn't perfect. And I just felt like I was missing out on the educational component of diagnosis and treatment planning ahead of time, seeing my plans laid out start to finish. So when Lightforce popped up, it was just the solution I'd been looking for at the right time. And so I went all in on it early 2021. It's been the only comprehensive system in my office since then. So I think, for the last probably at least 4 years, we've been running a fully digital workflow. I don't have traditional cases in my practice. We are all Lightforce or all aligners for my patients. And so we've seen, when you talk about the transformation, I've seen it because I think for a long time, people talked about share of chair and wanting to go all in with aligners to get that digital impact. And for me, anyway, in my market, I just couldn't do it. I wanted to use braces. I had patients that wanted braces, but now I feel like I'm 100% share of chair, and obviously there's differences between aligners and braces regardless. But I'm seeing all of my patients on a fully digital workflow start to finish. And so there's so much more delegation. There's so much more predictability in my treatments. And the way that, I can talk all day about this, but it's transformed, patient experience. Obviously, we have shorter treatment times, more predictable outcomes. I think more thorough and thoughtful treatment planning, which allows me to be a better orthodontist. For my team, it's a totally different day. We're seeing fewer visits, but more impactful visits. We've gotten rid of like the quick checks. We've gotten rid of the unpredictable nature of orthodontics where people show up and you don't know what to expect. And you have to reboot things, I can't say we've eliminated it fully, but with Lightforce and dental monitoring, we're really able to predict a lot of what we're expecting during our day. So our day flows a lot more seamlessly. And then I would just say from my experience, my role has completely changed. I'm still at the chair, but my goal now, or I guess my role in the office is face-to-face contact with my patients, relationship building, diagnosis and treatment planning. I'm overseeing my clinic. My team members are really executing the treatment that I've already planned and detailed at the front end. Again, we all are familiar with aligner workflows. It's the same thing. So I have planned the whole treatment in advance. As long as I've spent my time on the front end, now it's just execution chairside, which does not need to be done by me, right? It should be done by somebody who's a skilled technician at the chair. And so I feel like we've all kind of risen to our own highest and best use is kind of what I say. Like I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing and only I can do. And they're doing what they're supposed to be doing that they can get really, really good at and feel really empowered by. And so our days are seamless. They're easy. I've reduced my appointment counts literally I ran a number on it. It's almost half of what I should be seeing if you've tracked appointments along with production. So I show this graph where it's like my production over time has gone up and my appointments over time have gone down. So the inverse has happened. And it's that gap, right? It's that gap between the production line and the appointment line. That's where the freedom and the time and the ease is. So I'm a believer and a win. It's a win.
What do you see coming in the future of tech and orthodontics? The big elephant in the room is AI. We see a lot of companies trying to, brand themselves as AI. Some of them are more automation, but you have your finger on the pulse of this tech. Where do you see this going? Even in the next 2 to 5 years? I feel like we're on the cusp of an explosion in tech. I mean, what we've seen so far is nothing compared to what's coming down the road. What is your perspective on that?
It's only going to get better. It's a bumpy road sometimes with new technology, right? And figuring out the best way to use it and how to use it. But even in the last 5 years, my practice has exponentially changed for the better because of technology and because of us using technology in an appropriate way. Mm-hmm. I see more automation. Like I'm able to get in, I'm beta testing and doing some things with DM with their DM Plus right now, where we can take, the ScanBox scan and sync it with the iTero scan. And every week I'm getting a 3D study model of the patient that's tracking their tooth movement week over week. It's insane. I'm seeing, I can go stage by stage and track tooth movements on a full 3D model, not just photos of the patient. I can set custom goals. I can monitor my expansion. I think the goal is not to remove the doctor, which is, I think, what we were all afraid of initially, right? And even myself, like I was afraid to get on board with some of this stuff because I wanted my job security, right?
Right.
But I think the goal is to be able to see more patients without losing quality of care and, in fact, increasing quality of care. Make things easier for us so we can spend our time on the things that matter.
Well, what would you say to push back on that a little bit? Like you're saying, we're not looking to replace the doctor, but certainly it's scaling the doctor. That's what it sounds like to me.
It is scaling the doctor.
And I think that like anything else, with AI in general, there's going to be winners and losers here. I think that people who are able to adopt it and enhance their own value early on, who are able to invest in the infrastructure and then own the actual assets of AI, they're going to do extremely well, just like you're talking about. What would you say to a new grad coming out who has, up to $1 million in debt, is not in a financial position to even own a practice, is looking for a job, and then comes into this world where there's more orthodontists looking for a decreasing number of jobs? Because, one of the benefits for an owner here is I'm thinking I could probably put off hiring an associate for a while if I can double my own production, which is, in one sense, taking away a job from someone who doesn't have that opportunity. That's sort of a downer statement, but let's just push back a little bit. And what would you say to someone who's finding themselves in that position? Any advice for them?
I still think the advice is to become the master as quickly and as best as you can. It's to not be afraid of it, to not shy away from it, but to learn it. I remember reading something probably 7 years ago about how we were going to be entering almost like an industrial revolution with AI, right? Where the job markets will change as people are replaced. And then eventually new jobs are created and it becomes better for everybody overall. And so I don't know when that phase is going to happen. Maybe it's already happening a little bit, but I do see that there's going to be a shift in that. So like you said, the people that can learn it, that cannot be afraid of it, that can be savvy and strategic around it are going to be the ones that win. And I think, I hate to say that. I hope there aren't losers in it, but it's going to be a shift. It's going to be a change. But ultimately, the positive of this, I think, is that it's going to provide more access to care, which we've all seen the need. There are patients out there that want orthodontics who don't really want to go see the doctor very often, right? We saw $1 billion companies that were winning because they saw that need. So again, I think that there's a way to manipulate the technology to our advantage and to our patients' advantage. I think it's the people that shy away from it and are scared of it that'll ultimately end up being the ones that don't see that benefit.
Well, I agree with you. I think that it's a force, one way or another. And what you can't do is deny it. What you can't do is try to resist it. It's happening. And I think you gotta go with the flow, get your boat and just, ride it out.
I also want to say, Andy, as far as like a new grad coming out, don't be afraid to start your own practice with technology. I think, again, if you've learned it and you see the vision of the future that's coming, there's some pretty profitable, smart ways to run a practice leaning in on technology where you start immediately with your P&L in favor of digital versus having to go through the transition that all of us that had a traditional model, and are transitioning into digital have to go through. And so I think they can start these a little bit, smaller footprint, less expensive practices on the fixed costs, right? And invest more into the technology and just start from day one that way and be really successful with that.
Oh, I agree with you. If you're going to be doing a startup now, you don't want to do a startup like we did in the 90s. This should be a future thinking startup. And yeah, it's going to be, there's less precedent for it. I think that can be daunting for some people, but again, fortune favors the bold. If you can get your teeth into this and really learn it and start from that platform, that could actually put you ahead of a lot of these practices who are, a big, 1,000-pound elephant, which it's difficult for them to turn around. When you're young and small, you're nimble as well. So you can choose your pathway, and you don't have the momentum kind of dragging you down.
Exactly.
I think drive is huge. I think a lot of these new grads have a lot of drive. And I remember when we first got out, you had that kind of fire under you, like we did in residency, where we could work 7 days and 12 hours and be fine, and then, you start hitting your 40s and you go like, I don't want to do that anymore. And it's taking a toll on me. And so I think that's a chance where these new grads can really step up and use that young energy and fire to embrace digital, work extra hard on the front end. Like we said, go out of balance for a little bit. Don't expect to have all the things that we have at our 40s at this point. You, like they said, when you're in dental school, if you live like a dentist, you'll live like a dental student when you're a dentist. And same kind of thing happens in your early years. Work hard and live way below your means.
But work hard with a focus, because otherwise, even if I get out there on stage and I speak about my own journey, there are orthodontists a decade older than me who come to me with they just had that light bulb moment of taking off the blinders and starting to see what they really want for their futures. And so I think, you can be leaning in and, again, I talked about the proverbial hamster wheel, right? And it's like, you have to be on it for a while, but don't just stay on it. Make sure that you're actually running in a certain direction. Yeah. Because otherwise you are going to get burnt out, and you are going to hit a wall, and something's going to change in your life. And so that you didn't intend.
Well, you said that earlier, Jackie, that busyness does not equate to productivity. And ultimately, if you don't have alignment in any of that energy, then it's just wasted energy. Jill Allen calls that sideways energy.
Sideways. Yeah.
I like that.
Yep.
This is a great segue into work-life balance. Obviously, Jackie, now you have a large family.
I do. I have 4 kids.
4 kids.
2 oldest. My oldest is going into high school. My second's going into middle school. They all just had their last day of school yesterday. And then I have 2 girls that are still in elementary school. So everybody's in school now, but ages 14 through 6.
Which is, it's impressive that you do all you do in your practice, in the profession, and you're also juggling mom life. So, we're relatively new parents. My oldest now is 2.5. And we just have we have a 3-month-old now too, so that's been quite a. I
love seeing your pictures; they're so cute.
We're in a season of life right now. We'll put it that way.
Yes, yes, you are.
We're getting a new, and my wife Jenny, she's also an orthodontist. Juggling her own practice and all of this. So we're getting a new appreciation of this. But what kind of advice would you have, or what experience could you share with our listeners who find themselves in a similar situation?
Yes.
100% digital.
100% digital. Truly, again, I've been on this journey of freedom for the last decade. And so it's been step by step, but I recognized early that what I was doing was not sustainable. It was just not going to be sustainable for me. That probably showed up for me around 2018, 2019, when my 4th daughter was born. Because like you said, and the phrase that I always use is, my love multiplied, but my time divided. With every child, it was like, woof, okay, reevaluate what are my needs right now? How am I doing? Checking in with myself. And again, I had started with the coaching probably 2 or 3 years before that point, but it shows you okay, I was still on that journey because I hit peak, I wouldn't say maybe I was burnt out. I think I was just in a very hard place of life. My practice had grown exponentially under me. My family had grown exponentially in that same amount of time. And I was trying to do it all. So I think that's the advice I would give, is it's okay to ask for help, because I felt like I had to do it all. I was raised by parents that were, if you want it done right, you do it yourself. Right. And so I was trying to live that life of, I can do this the best of anybody around me, so I'm going to do it. If I can do it, I should be doing it. And I've unlearned that story. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to hire help. It's okay to outsource things. It's okay to train up your team to delegate things. You're not going to lose quality. And I think I also just, again, had to really prioritize what was most valuable to me. Like, where did my time have to go? And again, over the years, I was able to do that more easily as I implemented things. But I always had that vision in front of me of, I don't want to just be in a tunnel for the next 20 years of private practice in this same way, because the burden keeps getting heavier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeding this beast. Like, I'm doing great work, and the monster keeps getting hungrier, and it needs more and more and more from me. And so how do I get out from under that? Yes, never, right? The better you do, the bigger your practice gets, the more you have to deal with. And so it was one of those like catch-22.
And that goes with all the things that come with it too, I think.
Exactly.
I mean, in terms of the ego fulfillment too. And you realize it's never satisfied. Enough will never be. It will never be. What you think is enough to now in the future, this will be the point at which I will be, and then you achieve that. Well, no, and I'm not quite. So you just have to be happy now. Be happy.
There's
now.
a thing called the gap and the gain. Do you know that book? It's again, the same thing where it's like, we're always looking at this ever-changing horizon, right? And we just see the gap of like how far we have yet to go. And we rarely take time to look back and see how far we've come and the gain that we've done, because we're just not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. And so a lot of the lessons I learned were setting definitive markers of success for myself. Like, what does it actually look like to be successful? And then also reflecting on that to be able to say, hey, wow, look at what you've done. You've hit those things that you thought would define success for you. How are you feeling about that? Right? Like, we should be feeling pretty good. And instead of feeling like, man, I still have so much more to do and more to go. And you had talked about that kind of balance of like contentment and hunger, and it's like, I'm always hungry. I'm always going. I'm always looking out to the future, but I do take time to really be content with where I am and how far I've come as well.
We were at a meeting a couple months ago, and this one is like 20 times the level of excitement of the meetings that we've gone to in the past. It's just a really fun meeting. It's a nice thing to do for staff just because it brings us all closer together, and they only know the energy inside my own office. And once we get all these peers all together, the energy level is just madness. I have some Gen Z staff, and they're really excited about meeting the braces guy. And overall, they're excited about the party and the mechanical bull and the food. And it's really fun. And they go home really excited and ready to tackle on the day with brand new ideas and pearls and a lot of fun stories. I've been practicing for 18 years, and I'm definitely in need of some great pearls. And every lecture, I got 10 to 20 pearls from each one.
Be sure to log on to orthodonticpearls.org today to register for one of our last remaining seats at the Mother of Pearls Conference this October 10th through 11th at the Kennedy Space Center. Register at orthodonticpearls.org today. That's such a great balance. I think, I remember hearing this statement that if happiness is in the next thing, the next job, the next promotion, the next whatever it is, then it will never be where you are right now. Yeah. But at the same time, when I hear things like that, I don't want to stifle that energy. And so I think it's like you said, you have the balance, like you got to go. But then when you get there, take a moment to stand at the top of that mountain, look down and enjoy that. Not like, sometimes you think we'll feel like this when we get there and we go, oh, that's it. What's next? Right. So looking back and enjoying that moment.
I've thought about this a lot, and Chris and Brian, in our little retreats up in Park City, we this comes up like basically annually, where we talk about like this tension between our hunger, our drive, and then our desire to enjoy, and our desire to have contentment. And I think we all come at this from slightly different ways. And maybe this is my ADHD talking, but I feel like seasonality applies here too on a micro level, and, I go through these bursts where it's like, I'll hunker down and I'll just like bust through something and with like hyper focus for a certain period of time. And then afterwards, it's like, I can't think at all. And then it's like, I just completely slack off and, I just phone it in for a little while. And it's like, it just goes through these oscillating cycles of if I have just peaked, and then I'm coming down off of it, that's kind of the best that I ever feel, I think, because I don't feel guilty about relaxing and just chilling out, and I don't owe anyone anything. I've done it. And then eventually you start to decay, you start to feel kind of lazy. Then, if I push it off long enough, I start to get into like either a self-fabricated crisis or a real crisis, which then jolts me back into like hyper mobility again. And, so I don't think that's the healthiest way of going about it. I'm not advocating for that, but I wonder if like seasonality on a micro level is a potential solution here, that you can't expect to always have this perfect balance of contentment and drive, but maybe like compartmentalization. So one of the things that I've tried doing is on the week, I'm going to give it my all. During the weekdays, that's just push. When I come home, I turn my phone off after 5, at least for business stuff. Right. It's like, I'm checked out. That's where I'm focusing on my family. That's where I'm becoming Andy again. And then on the weekends as well, with some exceptions, that's my time to just pretend like I'm not a business owner anymore. Pretend like I'm not even an orthodontist. I'm just enjoying life on life's terms. So I guess compartmentalization is the best way to describe that. Has anyone else here tried that? And has that worked for you in any capacity? Or if not, what are your mechanisms?
So Andy, I want to add something to that or comment on that. I think we need to realize we need to be able to be in the middle way, meaning we can access either one when the situation calls for it. So our minds tend to be dualistic, and especially orthodontists. Like it's either this way or that way. It's either extraction or non-extraction. It's either airway or not airway. That's not reality, that polarity. That's not reality. So we tend to be dualistic. And if we can say, well, you know what? I'm going to fully embrace the drive within me because that's a part of me. And I'm also going to fully embrace the part of me that can just allow things to be, that doesn't need to make anything happen. And then when you're in the middle way and you've become comfortable with both sides of yourself, it's not a question of which one should I be? It's I am both. That's a statement of fact. And I will have the wisdom to know when I need to act out of the drive and when I need to act out of the contentment and allowance. And it's so hard for us to grasp. It's so hard for us to grasp. And it seems like a revelation every damn time we hear it again. And for me too. It's like, God, why is that so hard for me to just live that way? And slowly, I think we realize like, okay, no, so it's not this duality. I can be in the middle way, and each pole, so to speak, can be quote unquote true when it most aligns with reality, the way things are right now. Not the way I want them to be, because that's not reality, but the way things are. So I think the middle way is important. And he used the term perfect balance. He said, something about being in perfect balance. And as we've been talking, something's been coming to my mind about balance, right? And I like lifting weights. And so to me, balance means like, okay, if I'm doing a bench press and the bar is halfway up on, me on the press, it's in perfect balance at that moment, even though I'm exerting heavily. It's in perfect balance, or else if I wasn't, it would be falling, right? So there are times in our life when perfect balance could mean heavy exertion, but it's sustainable. Jacquee used that term sustainability. It's not sustainable. So we all know if we're lifting weights, like I've only got 10 reps in me, and if I push to 11, it's going to be on my chest. So that's balance, knowing your limitations. And so I think this is all a question of what are our limitations. Of course, in our 20s, we have way more energy. I mean, I'm really starting to realize now, like, oh my God, this is what adults have been talking about my whole life. And I didn't, again, Jacquee, you said earlier, like your brain will understand it, but your heart, it'll take years for your heart to integrate. That's what that is. I think that comes with life. And I think that's what they call wisdom, is things that your left brain, your logical mind knew, now your right brain or your heart, so to speak, this emotion, maybe more creative side of you now experiences like, oh my God, that's what they're talking about. That's what this is. Oh, geez. So anyway, I think part of this just comes with life experience. So perfect balance is the seasonality. That is perfect balance. Or you could be, and of course, it's different for each person, right? Just like Hawaii's pretty much even keel the whole year round, and Minnesota's not, and Arizona's not, and Utah's not. You just have to align yourself with your reality. So if your reality is, you're more this way, and well, then do that. Great. That's awesome. But if your reality is more like, hey, I got to be more neutral, that's who I am. And so, we're talking about like digitization and rather than manual stuff, going fully digital and automated and things like that. And I think another thought that came to my mind is this. Again, don't fall into the trap of dualism. Don't be listening to us and thinking, oh, I got to go fully digital. Well, maybe you do. If that's you, do it. Yeah. But maybe you are more introverted and maybe your energy aligns more with actually technically doing the thing. Yeah. Like technically doing the thing, right? And for somebody who, I would say who's more technical and into things and less into people, which is okay, then they're going to want to do the technical thing. They're going to want to place the bracket on the tooth and get so much satisfaction out of technically doing it. And someone who's
I'll push back on you, Brian, because even then you can do that on the computer model, and it's still the future. And I don't want anyone to lose and miss the boat.
I'm not saying you can't, but for those people who enjoy that, they could align that. They could be like, oh, my phase ones, I'm going to bond, chair side, right? So I'm not saying we just have to stop thinking so dualistically. Like find out what balance is for you. What's your perfect balance and at what stage in your life? In our 20s, we had tons of energy. In our 40s, we're like, I don't want to do that anymore.
Well, this comes down to goals and values, right? Like if you're, I think one of the assumptions with going all digital is scalability, and that's actually a desirable outcome. That's something that aligns with our goals. And as you guys are all Enneagram 3s, I'm an Enneagram 8, so I see things slightly differently there. But if your default setting is grow, and achieve, you could definitely see how, to do that, going all digital and scaling yourself to the max is aligned. But if you're more like Brian was describing, like an introvert, I'm thinking more like an Enneagram 5, for example. They're very much in their heads and they like to solve problems and things like that. That may not be the goal there. They don't want to see the maximum number of patients. They want to make a decent living that allows them to go home at night. And you can still do that, seeing, say, 10 patients a day. You could be one of those high fee practices that's very artisanal. Focus on the relationships. Not that you can't do that, Jackie, with a high volume practice like you've proven, but they get the fulfillment out of that, and the economics are not necessary at that point, nor is the wide influence to them. It's just not serving to their goals or to who they are. So certainly what Brian is saying is that it doesn't mean you all have to jump in on this. One of the things I always say, like I talked to Chris about this when we were visiting practices. When I would go visit practices in my first, say, 5 years or so of career, I wasn't so interested in the cookbook of how someone was doing something. I was more interested in, how did you develop this cookbook? Like, what was your thought process, and why does this work for you and your community? And how can I take that back and use that same process to evolve whatever practice culture is going to be authentic to myself and my community? And it's not going to be the same.
Good for you,
can't, if you copy someone else verbatim, the best you're ever going to be is a second best version of them.
Exactly.
That's wisdom for sure, because too many people want to just copy. And again, hopefully the point's been made here, but ultimately it's about knowing yourself and being authentic to who you are, what your values are, what your vision is for your practice, and then learning as much as you can and staying on the edge, the forefront of it. That's what I've done. And I feel like it's, served all of us well. I think we've all done that in some sense. So, the know thyself is number one, and then starts with why, right? It starts with why is, I would say, another big, you hear it a lot, but it really means, it's really meaningful. It was so popular for a reason. But if you don't know yourself, you're not going to know your why.
The big thing that came out of Traction that I love was the idea of like managing thinking time. Like, you take time to think, evaluate your processes, see how that's going for you. And that's kind of like when you visit practices, you take that back and you say, well, this would work for me, or I like this, I'm going to take this. This doesn't work for me, I'm going to throw that out. Don't copy it exactly. But then also finding to do what only you, the doctor, can do, and then delegate what what you don't. And he talks about in that book about monkeys. Like, so every time someone comes into your office with a problem, they're throwing a monkey in your office, right? And so if you're taking off on everyone's problems, you've got 20 monkeys going around your office and you can't focus, you can't do what you need to do. So I tell my team, we actually said this in the last meeting. I said, I read this book. I said, if you bring me a monkey, I'm going to return that monkey to you because I can't only handle 2 monkeys. And that's like diagnosis and treatment planning and the vision of the practice. Yeah. And so, I think like, again, taking time to take those little values like, oh, that monkey thing worked. I'm going to take that. And then he said some other things in the EOS that didn't apply to me. So you throw that out. But I think the goal is get as much knowledge as you can, take time to think, to learn, see what fits, just like pearls, right? Take the pearls that fit and throw the others back in the ocean that don't fit you.
I use that monkey one too, Chris. That was a very
nice.
Yeah. I was talking about the monkey on my back, and it's coming back out of the office. Can I flash back way back, Andy, when you were talking about seasonality and compartmentalization and things? Because you talked about you have this time for this thing and this time for this thing, and that's what I was going to tell you too, as far as advice as a young parent and just for future time management. People talk about time management, and oh my gosh, how do you get all this stuff done? But it's that. So same as me, I'm present where I am, and I plan time for the things that matter. So it started for me with time blocking, but then I realized I also have to do time tracking to be realistic about where my time is going, and should it be going there? How long does it take me to do certain tasks? And so I spent like 3 weeks, and I got this, I think it's from Clockwork, and one of the books that I read, Mike McAllowitz. But basically, I just kept a spreadsheet or a little notebook in my office. And every time I'd come back to my office, I would write down what time it was and what I had been doing. Right. And it was just like, it was a hard thing to keep up with, and stay consistent with. But I did it for 2 weeks. And then I went back through all of those pieces of paper and I looked at everything and I said, okay, is this something that I had to be doing? Could I delegate it? Can I delete it? Can I defer it? And there's the kind of this 4D structure. And so by going through that 2-week exercise, I really got a handle on where my time went when I was at the office so that I could start to see, wow, I'm doing a lot of things that I don't have to be doing. My day is made up of a lot of things that somebody else can master. So then I could put time into training and into delegating. And from there, I had a better handle on what I needed to be doing and how long it would take me. So then I could start to time block my days. And I still do. I mean, even before this started, Chris gave me something about relapse. And I was like, oh, let me put it on my calendar. Because I put what I need to do on my calendar. And I put how much time I think it will take me. And then I live by that, right? And I can slide things around on my calendar. If I don't get to them, I'm flexible. But now I know I've got 3 hours with my kids planned. I'm protecting that time. Like that's my time with my kids, that I'm going to be there and I'm going to be fully present with them. I'm preparing for this podcast. I'm going to make sure I have an hour for that one of the days leading into it, and I put it on my calendar and I protect it. So there is time for everything, and if there isn't, I know it because I don't have anywhere to put that hour. And so it really is just again, focus plus intention. I can speak that over and over again, but it's knowing where I'm going and having intention around it, and then creating those systems to execute.
I love being aware of this idea of Parkinson's law. And that is that the more time you have to do something, the more time it takes you to do something, and the less time you have to do something.
I tell my team this. I tell my team this all the time with templates and schedule templates.
And it's so true. Like if you have an hour to get your workout in and it normally takes you 2 hours, it's amazing that you can get this done in an hour. But it's crazy. Like when I have a day off, every time my workout takes twice as long. It just does. Just because I know I have 3 hours. Yeah. And so I almost have to like artificially say, okay, I've got an hour block for working out, and I got to do it in that hour. And then you kind of take advantage of Parkinson's law, just knowing that it will take a hold of you if you're not conscious about how you schedule your time. So I love that you did an actual calendar, Jacquee. I think that's the next step I would love to take. And I think those of you listening can really do that, is find out where you're spending your time. Can you condense that time, especially the routine stuff? Can you say, hey, I've got 20 minutes to do this? And then, your sacred time, like don't condense that, like time with your kids. Don't think about that as a checklist item. That's like, you got to be present. You got to enjoy that. But, block that sacred time. And then the things that are more tedious, try to be as efficient as possible in those.
Or things. Delegate or outsource. But exactly. And even self-time. I mean, I time block time to reflect or to exercise or to sleep. I don't put it on my calendar, but I'm going to protect after a certain time.
Hey, getting enough sleep is huge. I'm learning that now in my 40s. You get eight and a half hours, you feel like a totally different person than when you're getting 6.
I think one thing that's interesting here is, Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. And this is one example of examining your life. Jack, you're talking about literally jotting down what you're doing, why you're doing it, how long it takes, whatever, right? You're examining your life. And sometimes we don't want to go there because we kind of suspect that we'll find things that we don't like. Like, oh God,
Right.
I'll figure out how inefficient I am, or oh, how this or that. But I think when you just drop that, whether you like it or don't like it, drop what you like or don't like. Again, align yourself with reality. Examine your life. The unexamined life is not worth living. Examine your life, and then you're aligning yourself with reality. So you're more productive. You're happier, right? Because you realize, like, okay, well, here's where what my time is. Here's where I want to be spending it, and it's out of balance. Again, not sustainable. It's not that in the end, it's going to, crush me, consume me, destroy me, whatever, right? So you figure out, okay, well, I need to block off this time for personal things. I need to block off this time for, relationship things. And I think as we've been talking this whole time, I've been thinking, like, life is about relationship.
Yeah.
And I think to the young doctors and the residents, you don't have as much time for relationship, but that doesn't mean it can't be in perfect balance. It's going to be less. It's going to be less than when you're, older and you have maybe a little bit better, quote unquote, work-life balance. But you can always be in relationship with your deeper self, and getting to know your deeper self and shedding your exterior, what you've built up in your persona. You can always be in touch with that and getting to know that deeper. Okay, so that's the fundamental thing. You can always be in deeper relationship with God or something bigger than yourself, whatever you think that is. So I think it comes down to a relationship. And even like, if you think about it, the air we breathe, we are in constant relationship with our environment. It never stops. Once you stop being out of relationship and you become a single entity, you are no longer alive. You are no longer a part of this magical, mystical, phenomenal thing. And so I think to everyone that's listening, view anything that's coming across your path, including this podcast, including what you're hearing, if you're in residency or at a meeting or whatever, as a seed. It's all a seed. So maybe it can be planted for you right now. Maybe it makes sense for you to plant right now. Maybe it makes sense right now to go 100% digital for you now. But don't think you have to. Maybe it's something that in 5 years from now, you'll be like, oh, yeah. And that seed was planted, and then you can act on it. So don't be dualistic. Don't think that you have to either accept it or reject it right now.
All or nothing.
Just be like, well, yes. Why? Why not just be like, hey, rather than having to decide, is it good to be 100% digital? Is it bad? Like, this is so stupid. Yeah. It's so stupid to think that way. Like, you're missing out on the richness of life when you think it has to be all this way or all that way. Just be like, hey, maybe I can find my balance of digital. Maybe I can find my balance of relationship. How can I find the balance in residency? Like I said, your relationship with your spouse, your significant other, yourself. Maybe those are the only ones that you can sustain during dental school. But you can still be in balance if you are intentionally putting the time there and you know what your sustainability is.
Right. Don't write it off entirely. Right. It's not like the season has to have no relationships. I mean, like we said with David, you don't make new old friends. And I think that relationships in some way are like wine. They need to be barreled. They need to be tended to over years. You can't just wake up at 40 after being a Scrooge your entire life, like completely buckled down and just achievement. And then wake up in your giant house with your 5 cars and realize that you have no one to share it with, no one meaningful to share it with. And then every relationship you make at this point is a superficial one. They just want to hang out with you for a chance to drive your car. Right. Exactly. So I do think, it's all balanced. Maybe it's going to be slightly out of balance for a little while, but that doesn't mean you write off that part of your life entirely, because it withers and you may not get it back.
I think the takeaway of this is, not my choices have worked well for me because I spent the time learning who I was, what my values were, where I was headed in the future. And I'm grateful for this journey that I've been on for a decade. And that's what I want people to take away is, start with, again, knowing who you are, not what others expect from you, not what you are told you're supposed to be or told what you're supposed to do. Because I think it's really easy to, especially like we all started our careers at the beginning of social media, essentially, right? It's a very different world for people now. They're coming out with a lot more pressures and input than we had, right? When they're trying to make decisions around what they want or need or who they're going to become. And so I think ultimately it's coming back to that center of, okay, but who am I? Get help for that if you need it. right? Read books, build a community, find your consultants and your coaches that will help you and support you in that. But that's where it started for me. And yes, digital practice is a huge part of that. My community is a huge part of that. The learnings that I've done are a huge part of that. So, but it might be different for others.
Well, great conversation, guys. This has been a really fun one. I appreciate your time here, Jacquee, and thanks for bringing your insight, energy, and authenticity to the show. From transforming your practice with digital innovation to sharing coaching wisdom and finding your rhythm, both professionally and musically, you've shown what it looks like to lead with intention and passion in this ever-evolving field. To our listeners, if you've enjoyed today's episode and want to connect with thousands of other forward-thinking orthodontists, be sure to check out our private Facebook group, Orthodontic Pearls. With over 9,500 verified orthodontists, it's the largest community of its kind in the world. And if you're a business owner, consultant, or have a product or service geared towards orthodontic professionals, we offer unique sponsorship opportunities for both the podcast and our Facebook community, starting as low as $150. It's an ideal way to get your brand in front of the most engaged and influential orthodontists in the profession. To receive a sponsorship menu or learn more, email us at orthodonticpearls@gmail.com. As always, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks a lot, guys.
Last year, we were fortunate enough to come as well, but I feel like that really set the bar high. And so then this year, I feel like everybody was super, super excited and thrilled to hear that we were going to be able to attend again. Like I said, the energy of this conference is just so lively. There's so much to do. Every detail is so thoroughly thought through that it's a blast. I was clinical. I kind of transitioned to admin. I feel like in every single lecture, no matter what team you're on, you can take something away from it. But then it's a perfect balance of we're here to learn and then also we're rewarded and get to do fun things. Especially at Collins, we all have really, really close bonds with each other. But I feel like this experience definitely allows us to make those relationships and bonds even stronger because here we get to have fun and really expand on those relationships. Dr. Collins always puts on a great show. At the clinic, we're so used to, our routines there, but it's fun to see him kind of just be able to let loose and just truly have a blast. Last year was USS Midway. This year was the house party at Dr. Teeters' house. And next year is at the US Space Center.
Be sure to log on to orthodonticpearls.org today to see our lineup of speakers and incredible events we have planned for you. We'll be partying under a space shuttle. It will be absolutely incredible with music from the world's only all-orthodontist band, RELAPSE. If you've seen RELAPSE before, you should definitely come back again because every show is different, and this show will be out of this world. Register at orthodonticpearls.org today.